Studying Torah today. It's the burger anniversary. Mazel tov. Lots of action. Ruach. Chabad. Don't know what's going on over there, but it looks like it's happening.
All of a sudden, I want people to be funny.
Ron is the funniest. She take pictures.
No, Warren with his picture.
You take pictures.
You're live on camera. All right, here we are. Lots of action here going on in Chabad Palm Beach Gardens. As we are up to mitzvah number 30, right? Mitzvah number 30. It is no, we did 30 yesterday. We're up to 31. It is a positive mitzvah to rest from work on Yom Kippur. Now, we have touched on this. We have touched on the mitzvah of resting. Each one of these is a separate mitzvah, by the way. So whether you're resting on Shabbos, whether you're resting in Yom Kippur, first day Rosh Hashanah, last day first day Sukkot, last day Sukkot, each one of those is a separate mitzvah. It just shows you how easy it is to do a mitzvah. Good morning, Terry. Pleasure to celebrate with you this morning. Part of the show now. You've been part of the Torah study. Now you're part of the show. It's great. And we can't wait to have you here in person. Winston is in Indonesia. Friend Mark's not sure where you are, but good to have you with us. Elaine, Garrett, and Corey. Shalom, everybody. Good morning. So you know what's interesting? Gil, shalom. Have a great day, man. You can join us for Torah study if you want. So just a quick Tanya angle on how easy it is to do the mitzvahs. There's two kinds of mitzvahs. You know, there's 613 mitzvahs. 248 are positive, active. 365 are passive. Yeah. Passive. Like things you don't do. Which means you just do them, you fulfill the mitzvah by not doing anything. Like by not murdering, you're now doing a mitzvah. It's amazing. What's interesting, what's interesting about it is that when you, Tanya explains, that when you do a positive mitzvah, an active mitzvah, you're connecting with a limited degree of God's light. You're connecting with God's energy. But because God wants you to do this, and you do this, then you're connecting with a limited degree of godliness, which is good. It's a finite, limited degree of godliness because it's defined. But when you do a passive mitzvah, a mitzvah which involves not doing this, but about restraining, there is no definition associated with that. Hence, the light that you're connecting with by observing a passive mitzvah is actually an infinite light. You're experiencing much more God's unlimited energy connection with a passive mitzvah than you do with a active mitzvah. Just an interesting angle. So instead of us looking down at the passive mitzvahs and saying, well, you don't have to do anything. No, you think about the fact that it is much deeper of a bond with Hashem when you do a passive mitzvah than when you do an active mitzvah, which is why when you miss a davening, I'll use it in a second, Steve. When you miss a davening, for example, you miss a Shema, and you didn't do a mitzvah, it's much more difficult to atone for a light that you could have brought into the world that you didn't. Whatever. Go ahead, Steve.
The question is, I didn't commit murder since I was born. Do I get this very day, or do I have the intention, or I have the opportunity to do a murder, but I don't do it? Do I get the mitzvah? When do I get the mitzvah?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's an interesting question. So I would imagine that there's different levels of engagement. That when you are faced with the opportunity to do murder and you didn't do it, then you certainly fulfilled the mitzvah in its fullest degree. But even when you aren't faced with the desire or the opportunity to commit murder, and you didn't do it, then on a more shallow level, you're also fulfilling that mitzvah. Whether or not you need to have intent always helps. As we're learning in these days in the daily Tanya, we're learning that intent is the energy behind the mitzvahs. It's like a cell phone. A cell phone is a cell phone, but if you don't have the Verizon connection, it's not going to help you much, right? So a mitzvah without a kavana, without intention, is like a body without a soul. I mean, you have the body, you just don't have life. So yes, you should be cognizant and mindful of the observance of the mitzvahs and why you're doing the mitzvahs every moment in time, which just ties into the conversation we had yesterday about the 10 Commandments, not to murder, not to steal. Why do we do them? We do them not because they make sense. We do them because that's what God commanded us to do. So when you do the mitzvahs as a fulfillment of the will of the creator of the universe, you're actually connecting to the creator of the universe, as opposed to saying, well, I don't steal because it's the right thing to do. Because if that's what you're going to say,
Being a good person, being a good Jew,
Always.
Yeah, it's not about being a good Jew, a good person.
Nothing to do with goodness, that's
Right, exactly.
And allow me to use this opportunity to plug our next upcoming JLI course. Did you receive the flyer in the mail? You did? It's about It's about Jewish values. It's about Jewish values. People love to say, I don't observe mitzvahs. I'm not religious, but I have Jewish values. And then you ask them another question. You say, so what are Jewish values? They don't know what to say. What is a Jewish value? What is a value? What makes a value Jewish? And which values do you subscribe to that are more Jewish than the other values that you don't subscribe to? What are Goyish values? and they can't explain it. That's what this course is about. This course is an understanding of what are those Jewish values that apparently we hold so near and dear to our heart, but we just can't identify them. Right? We think we know them. Good. So with that introduction, good morning. Lauren Feingold is with us too. And thank you, Winston, for posting the link to register to the upcoming JLI course. I think it's starting the first Tuesday in April at 4 p.m. here. Okay. It is a positive commandment, and it's going to be on Zoom too, by the way. It's a positive commandment to rest from work on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. As Scripture states, we always have to go back to basics. In Vayikra, chapter 23, it says, "It shall be for you a day of solemn rest." So the Creator of the universe asked us to rest on that day. You should rest. Yeah. Don't mess with the best. Whoever does work on Yom Kippur disobeys a positive commandment as well as violates a negative one. Now, we're going to learn about the negative commandments. Right now, we're only doing the positive commandments. Later on, we'll do a list of the negative commandments, and you'll see they double up. It's a double whammy, yeah, because if you work on Yom Kippur, what you're doing is you're violating a positive mitzvah to rest, as well as a negative mitzvah, which is not to do work. And if it is done willfully, the punishment is kares. Do you know what kares is? Kares means severance, limbo. No, not pretty. No. Purgatory means that you have a destination. Purgatory is cleansing. They say, look, you're dirty, you're schmutzig, we're going to send you through the car wash. Gehenna will clean you up and you'll be ready for the Gan Eden. But kares is a terrible place to be. Kares is severance. They're cutting you off. You're on your own. Don't know. Lost. Good morning, Michael from Germany. Afternoon, actually, in Germany. Yeah. Which city are you in Germany, Michael? Let us know. Great to have you with us. So kares is a terrible, terrible punishment. It's being cut off. Think about it this way. If a judge tells someone you're free to go, that's good. And even if the judge says to a guy, you're in the house arrest, or we're sending you to jail. But if the judge says, I want to have nothing to do with you. I mean, think about a parent who says that to a child. I want to have nothing to do with you. That's the worst of the worst. You can tell him, I want you to go clean your room. I want you to go, you're grounded. But if you say to him, I want to have nothing to do with you, disowning you, that's terrible. That's a really terrible thing. And that's a kares. And there's certain violations of Torah that result in kares. And the Torah talks about kares, about the punishment of kares. It's not a pretty thing. And we never want to experience it. So if somebody works on Yom Kippur intentionally, is worthy of kares. If unintentionally, then they don't get kares, severance. They have to bring a chatas offering, a sin offering. Whatever labor is forbidden on Shabbos is exactly the same as that which is forbidden on Yom Kippur. You'll notice that's why many, many shuls around the world that on Yom Kippur, good morning, Dan, good to see you. What they'll do is on Yom Kippur, that they'll move into a hotel and they'll walk to shul from the hotel. 24 hours, they don't mess. No lights, no TV, no cell phones, no radio, nothing. What they'll do is they'll just, at least for Yom Kippur itself, at least you'll see a lot of people do that. They'll literally move into a hotel, they'll walk to shul, or they'll make arrangements to sleep somewhere closer, and that's what they'll do, right? Because it's very, very important. And it's enforced everywhere, every time for both men and women. Now, mitzvah number 32, it's a positive commandment to fast on Yom Kippur. Now, never did I realize the challenges of this mitzvah until I came to Palm Beach. Because I learned that some people fast faster than other people.
The fast ends. The break fast ends much sooner. Like
Yeah.
5 o'clock break fast.
I mean, I came to Palm Beach, and my neighbors are telling me they're going to do a Passover Seder. Great, fantastic. Passover starts 8 o'clock, right? See my neighbor's house. Plenty cars outside, 5 o'clock. God, I guess they're early. By 7 o'clock, they're all gone. 7:30, they're gone. I'm like, what happened over here? By 8 o'clock, everybody's snoring, and it's like, hello. They say same thing to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is, the fast ends sometime around 8 o'clock. Right? So the fast ends, at least in Palm Beach, right? Now, some people tell me, yeah, we break the fast. I'm like, okay, we also break the fast. I mean, break the fast, right? They literally break the fast at 5 o'clock. Did I ever tell you the story? This guy comes to me. He comes to shul on Yom Kippur in the break, between morning and afternoon service. I said to him, Joe, I didn't see you. Where were you last night? He says, Rabbi, I had to fly in this morning. It was very, I had to be somewhere. I flew in this morning. I said, you flew in Yom Kippur? How do you fly in Yom Kippur? It must be so hard to fast on a flight. He says, Rabbi, it was really very, very difficult. It was hard to fast on the flight, but you know what? I came home, I had a sandwich, and now I'm fasting much better. So, fasting means just that. It means fasting from the beginning of Yom Kippur till the end of Yom Kippur. Now, admittedly, in my family, we have a rule. Everybody has to fast until their age. So I tell my kids, if you're 9 years old, you have to fast till 9 p.m. If you're 10 years old, you fast till 10 p.m. Well, and then even the newborns fast. They fast until they eat. They fast until they eat. That's how it works in my house. But obviously, after Bar Mitzvah, you're supposed to really fast the whole fast. And the kids get excited.
73 o'clock.
What's that?
73 o'clock. 73 o'clock.
73 o'clock, yeah.
No,
So
73 hours from the day the fast starts.
So on Yom Kippur, folks, Yom Kippur is a certain date in the calendar. It's the 10th day of Tishrei. It's the day that Moses came down from Mount Sinai with tablets, the second tablets. It's the day that God said, you know what, Moses, you got a deal. Salachti kidvarecha, I have forgiven per your request. It was the day, after the golden calf, after he smashed the first tablets, and they were in limbo. The first 40 days was good because they were in good terms until they smashed the tablets and they did the golden calf. Moses smashed the tablets. Yeah. The second 40 days, was negotiations, and the third set of 40 days was when they were coming to terms. It was on the end of the third set of 40 days, 120 days from Shavuos, which is when Moses strikes a deal with God, and God says, I've forgiven per your request, and that's why it's become the day of atonement, of forgiveness. So that day in the calendar is a very, very serious day. It doesn't matter if your boss needs to do a certain deal or a client needs you for a meeting. It doesn't matter. You're not available. I'm sorry, I'm not available. So what do is you don't eat from sundown on Erev Yom Kippur until nightfall after Yom Kippur. There's a Jew here in the community. He is all his friends. They all break the fast early, and he tells me it's his thing. He actually dedicated a portion of the Torah which relates to Yom Kippur because that's his thing. It's his commitment. That he says he does not eat until 3 stars show up. That's it. That's his thing. So everybody else is, what they're doing, and he fasts. What?
My father used to say that fasting on Yom Kippur was the easiest thing in the world for him.
Why?
Because he said, in the war, we never knew when we would get our next piece of bread, morsel of food, a drink of water. He said, Yom Kippur, I know exactly what I'm going to eat. So what's the big deal?
Right. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. For me, what's very interesting is I meet with a lot of members of the community and I talk to them about their portion in the Torah. It's very, very deep, meaningful conversation. I often ask them, what is your most favorite Jewish holiday? And I'm always surprised. The most popular Jewish holiday is Yom Kippur. Absolutely. Most favorite. It's people's most favorite Jewish holiday. It's very interesting. And I always ask them why. And for most people, they say it's about renewal. It's a new beginning. It's a fresh start. It's a reset. Good to see it. It's just nice to hear people talk about Yom Kippur in such a mature, advanced, and personal perception. Instead of looking at, but all the things you can't do, It's like, think about it this way. Think about you have a meeting at the White House. You have a meeting at the White House. And what are you thinking about at the meeting at the White House? Are you thinking about all the things that you're not allowed to do? Are you thinking about, I can't be checking my email. I can't come in shorts. I can't come in flip-flops. Are you thinking about all those things? Or are you thinking, hello, I'm meeting the president? It would be so incredibly immature for somebody to be focusing on all the things that they can't do when they're meeting the president. That's what Yom Kippur is. It's so inspiring for me to hear from people. They're not focused on the food that they can't eat and on the things that they can't do, the 5 prohibitions of the day. What they're focused on is on the fact that they're connecting with Hashem. And that's a very beautiful, meaningful concept, right? So here it is. The mitzvah of fasting in Kippur says like this. Scripture states, also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement, and you shall afflict your souls. Afflict your souls. It's a day of torturing your souls. Now, is there something bad about that? Is that a negative connotation? I don't think so. Afflicting your souls. That's the words in the Torah. I look at it like no pain, no gain, You got to have a little bit of, you got to go through a little bit of challenge in order to experience the blessing that follows. It is necessary to fast from evening till evening and to add on from non-holy time to the holy period, which means to begin a bit before the first evening and end the fast a bit after the end of the day. Chabad custom is actually to fast 26 hours. 26 hours. You give it a little extra on both ends. If one eats more on the day before Yom Kippur, it is as though he fasts on both the 9th and the 10th day of Tishrei, which means both Yom Kippur and the day before Yom Kippur. It's very interesting. If you eat extra on the day before Yom Kippur and you're supposed to have a festive meal, yontiv meal before Yom Kippur, then it's considered like you fasted both days. Isn't that interesting? That it's not so much about depriving yourself. Yeah, it's about conscious eating. It's about focused eating. A lot like you just said, Rabbi, about your father, about Harry, right? That he was conscious about the food. It was something that he learned to appreciate. If you have everything all the time, you don't appreciate anything. You don't appreciate what you have until you don't have it anymore. I tend to like it that when you realize how, when you deprive yourself of certain experiences, of relationships or of indulgences, that when you have them, you appreciate them much, much more. And you become grateful. So it's actually a meditation that I try to encourage people to consider, that instead of thinking the whole Yom Kippur about your dinner, think about the sinner. Think about your soul, the voice of your soul. Try to allow your body to, think about your souls, both of them, Think about both of them. All year long, we're focused on the grumbling of our stomachs, and the nutrition of our bodies. But how often do you think about the nutrition of your soul? One day a year, let's just give a little focus. Let's dig a little deeper. That's what Yom Kippur is about. So instead of focusing about the torturing of the body, think about the voice of the soul. You see, when the body is making noise, you can't hear the soul. But when you silence the body once a year, that's when you're able to hear the soul. It's a day of inwardness, a day of digging deep, right? It is in effect everywhere and every time for both man and woman. Now, this becomes a very, very interesting mitzvah when you talk.
It's time related because it's 24, 25 hours.
No, it's not time related because it's a calendar thing. It's not a clock thing. It's a calendar thing. So you can't say woman exempt from Shabbos because it's time every 7th day. It's on the calendar. Time refers to the clock, to the 24-hour cycle. That's what women are exempt from, but not on the calendar if it's a date scheduled, right? This becomes interesting when you have medications that you have to take. So what do you do about medications that you have to take on Yom Kippur? So this becomes a very interesting conversation, which you have to first have with your doctor. First, you have to have with your doctor and say, look, doc, what's going to happen if I don't take this for 24 hours? What's going to happen if I miss this medication? You'll say, yeah, nothing's going to happen. If that's the case, then don't even talk to your rabbi about it. Hang on. Here it is. Okay. If that's what your doctor says, then just let it go. Don't even bother your rabbi. But if your doctor says you have to have this medicine, your life depends on it every day, now you talk to the rabbi. And the rabbi will tell you about a certain measurement of water with which you're allowed to take this pill. And you can't just indulge and have 2 glassfuls of orange juice with your pill. You can't do that. There's a very small measure of, I can't remember, an ounce, not even an ounce or something of water that you're allowed to take it with, and you have to measure and to make sure that that's considered.
Couldn't you take it before?
That's right. Those are the questions you have to ask. What's going to happen if I schedule it before Yom Kippur and take it again after Yom Kippur? Because most of these medications, nothing's going to happen. if you miss it one day. But again, I'm not a doctor. You have to check with your doctor. And if the doctor deems it necessary that you absolutely have to take those medications, then you do. You're not supposed to put your life in danger. In fact, there was an amazing story that came out after the Holocaust. It was actually during the Holocaust, when the Jews escaped eastward towards Shanghai and eventually to Japan, to Kobe, Japan. I actually spent the Pesach in Kobe, Japan. Quite an amazing place over there. So there was this Treaty of Nanjing in 1843, which was a seemingly unimportant, useless piece of information that was probably printed on page 42 of the newspaper, that they basically made a deal. There was some war going on between China and I don't know who else, France maybe. There was a deal, and they basically turned Shanghai into an international city. You didn't need visas to get into Shanghai, just into Shanghai. 100 years later, that would turn out to be a lifesaver for thousands and thousands of Jews, as they were able to find safe passage into Shanghai because of the Treaty of Nanjing. So what happened was that many Jews were able to escape, especially Yeshiva Bachrim for some reason, were able to escape, and they found themselves in Japan on Yom Kippur of 1943. And the big question was, which day do you celebrate Yom Kippur? Because of the international dateline. Where exactly is the international dateline? Right, that's the big question. Is it down the Pacific where nobody lives? Or is it the edge of Asia? If it is the edge of Asia, where is Australia? Where are the islands? Somebody's anxious to call me. Dude. Sorry, doesn't stop. So is it the edge of Asia? Or is it some line down the Pacific Ocean? So at that time, there was a non-Chabad rabbi who ruled that it's not clear, and therefore you have to fast 2 days because we don't know which one it is. Now, this is wartime. Hello, food wasn't exactly ample. So what happened was, sadly, is that they fasted 2 days in Japan. Some of the boys died. Well, at least one of the boys died. Now that was a ruling that was ruled, like on the run, on the fly. I guess they weren't able to really look into it properly, but it's being understood that was a mistake, an error. The international dateline is actually down through the Pacific, where nobody sees it, it doesn't actually bother anybody. But Japan is certainly at the same time zone, the same date as Israel, right, as the mainland, and therefore Yom Kippur is to be observed on the day of Yom Kippur, same as anywhere else. In other words, you can't say it's maybe Monday, it's maybe Tuesday. You can't do that, right? So, part of the subsequent ruling was that the Torah is made to be lived with, not to be died with. You're supposed to live with the Torah, not die with the Torah. And the Torah is not here to give us rules and laws that are non-sustainable. So you're not supposed to fast for 48 hours. We can't. Our nature today, maybe in Esther's time, they could fast for 72 hours straight. But in our time, we can't do that. We're not capable of fasting 48 hours straight. We can barely do 24 hours. So for us, it's not anything which we're supposed to be doing. The fasting here is not supposed to kill you. It's supposed to, cleanse you. That's a nice word. People do cleansing fasts. Intermittent fasting is a big thing today. People do a lot of these fasts, just for cleansing, and that's what it's about. But it's certainly not for killing you. And nothing in the Torah is supposed to be done that way. And if you're doing it in a way which is not joyous, you're not doing it properly. And that is how we get to end today's mitzvah. What? Yeah.
In the middle of Yom Kippur, you get a headache.
Yeah.
Which means that if you don't take an aspirin, you're not going to be able to participate in the rest of the service because you get this throbbing headache. Can you take an aspirin?
So what if you have a throbbing headache? What's going to happen?
Be able to participate in the service.
So what?
Okay, fine. That's my question.
Take a nap.
Okay.
You can't do that.
Likely related to being
Lack of food.
The big discussion is aspirin even food? Is aspirin even violating the fast? Because there's a concept called roy lachilas kelev, something which is worthy of being eaten by a dog. If you give aspirin, would a dog eat it?
Probably not.
You didn't think you would think it was food. It looked like food, doesn't smell like food, doesn't taste like food, right? So that's where things get a little more complicated, right? Which is why, for example, if you need to take medicine, even not in Yom Kippur, which has gelatin in it, which is treif, pig, right? How do you take it? So there's a way to take it that you wrap it up in lettuce or a tissue. And if it doesn't touch your gullet, then it's not considered like you properly ate it. You see what I'm saying? Like an ointment is not considered ingesting, even though it goes into your bloodstream, or other forms of infusing things into your body that don't go through the mouth, right? So there's discussion about what is considered the way of eating, what is considered food. But if we are able to err on the side of caution and say, you know what, I'm not eating anything for the duration of Yom Kippur, good for you. That's the best way to go. But you can't say, well, in order to concentrate in davening, no, don't concentrate. Take a nap, sleep it off, you feel better.
Especially if you're shooting up drugs, you're going to have an extra tough day. That's going to be really a bad day.
I don't know. You have to give me a background in there. I'm not sure. Garrett says, I think it also sets the tone of how you will act in the upcoming year. Absolutely. The way you act in Yom Kippur is very, very important. With that, folks, we're going to call it a day here. Thank you for joining me here today. Shalom and be well. Thank you. Okay.